Aloha! I'm Tori Eldridge, author of Hawaii Rage, and join me this week on The Final Twist.
This week on One Final Twist, we are joined by best-selling author Tori Eldridge, whose newest book, Hawaii Rage, is available now from Thomas and Mercer. Welcome.
Oh, thanks for having me. Appreciate it, Scott.
Tell us a little bit about your newest book.
Oh, sure. Okay, so Hawaii Rage takes my ranger Makalani Pahukula to the big island of Hawaii for a Paniolo Hawaiian cowboy adventure and mystery. So, what happens is she's there working at a very small National Historic Site after having worked at a huge national park, and she's a little bit bored, and she needs to get out there and feel like she's, doing some manual labor and doing something worthwhile. And right about then, her cousin-in-law invites her to help out on the ranch. You see, the book opens with a Makalani helping, rescuing this boy who has fallen into a lava tube, while at the same time, this rancher is meeting a gruesome death by a bull. Well, it turns out it's her cousin-in-law's father. So when Makalani says, yeah, sure, I'd be happy to go be a paniolo, her cousin-in-law says, yeah, but I'm a little worried about this. Could you also check into my father's death? Because it doesn't sound right to me. Well, the longer Makalani stays and works with the Hiapo cowboys, and the more she learns about the family's dark history, the more she starts to suspect that maybe this gruesome accident is actually an ingenious murder for somebody to take control of the ranch. And that's Hawaii Rage.
Yeah. And, this book, like your other book, this Hawaii, the culture, it's got a mix of action, family, and heritage. Talk a little bit about the Hawaiian heritage that is included in both of your books.
Oh, absolutely. So this series is really supposed to be a very authentic, deep dive into the Hawaii people on Hawaii and they're going through today. As a native Hawaiian myself, it wasn't enough for me to write, a cool story set in paradise and kind of integrate the culture. No, I really needed people to feel it. And so to that end, I weave in the history of Paniolo, Hawaiian cowboys, into this book. And the way in which I do that is through family. So the Hiapo family, it's a multi-generational ranch from the patriarch who is 97 years old, all the way down to his great-grandson who's 8 years old. And their ancestry traces back, way back to the late 1700s, when the first vaqueros, the Mexican cowboys, came to Hawaii to teach the natives and the locals there how to wrangle cattle and deal with all these cattle that were gifted to King Kamehameha the First. And so all that history is woven into the family. So it's not separated. It's not like, information dump. It is intrinsic into who these people are and what they're doing.
Talk a little bit about the land lease and how it's a very selective type process of who gets land in Hawaii.
Oh, absolutely. This is something that I really dove into very strongly with Kauai Rage, Kauai Storm,
Mhm.
sorry, the first book, in which Makalani comes home from working in Oregon for her grandmother's 85th birthday, and she finds two of her cousins missing and her whole ohana, her family, at each other's throats, and their traditional homesteading way of life at risk. So in Kauai Storm, what you learn is that the family is leasing Hawaiian homeland's land. And this goes back to the whole Great Mahele, the division of land, back when Hawaii was being overtaken, where the Hawaiian kingdom was being overthrown. And we were trying to hang on to land. And so it's kind of complicated, but there's a big land division, but the land didn't actually get to the people. So now there is a whole bunch of land that is available through Hawaiian Homelands and the Hawaiian Homelands Commission. However, there is a requirement that you are 50% Hawaiian in order to be eligible to lease this land. And your inheritors, if you wanted to pass it down, need to be 25%. And this causes a huge issue and division in families because, as you can imagine, in Hawaii, we marry into all sorts of ethnicities. I myself am Hawaiian, Chinese, and Norwegian. And in Hawaii Rage, the Hiapo family also has Mexican and Japanese and, all sorts of cultures. And so what happens is with intermarrying in a family with many children, you have different members of the family who have enough Hawaiian and other families who do not. And of course, as far as we Hawaiians feel, any bit is enough. But as far as the government is concerned, you have to be 50%. That also comes to play in Hawaii Rage, even though the Hiapo family actually own their land.
Your audiobooks, I want to make a comment about those because I have listened to both of them
Aw,
and you narrate. And
I
it is
do.
usually when I will say, usually when the author narrates, it is not a good outcome. It really isn't. And I'm a big fan of Stephen King, but Lord knows he cannot narrate a novel. He can write one, but he can't narrate it. Now, you, on the other hand, are the true gem that is able to narrate your own work. And what goes into that when you put so much passion and into the language and narration?
Well, to begin with, mahalo. Thank you very much for that compliment. I appreciate it. And you're right. Audiobook publishers don't generally like authors to narrate their own work. I had to audition.
Oh,
But I had a background in acting, in television, film, theater, and also a background in voiceovers and in session singing as a singer. So I'm very comfortable in recording studios. I'm used to doing voices. I'm used to embodying characters. And also, when I write, I read aloud and I do all the voices in character, like got split personality. And so I already had these voices talking to me in my head. And so they hired me and I was able to do that. Because I'm not a professional narrator and I don't narrate all the time, I did a lot of rehearsing that got my voice in shape because it is a lot to talk 7, 8 hours straight in a day, 5 days in a row. Trust me, that's a lot. So it helps to, build up your muscle, your vocal muscles and all that. So you're able to do that. And also because, like I said, I'm not a professional narrator, I did a lot of homework so that I knew the voices that I was going to use and how I was going to perform it. And then I was in a studio here in Portland at Digital One. I had a fantastic engineer and I had a director who
oh,
was directing me virtually from Los Angeles, Jennifer Aquino. And so I had all of this support and this fabulous studio. And it was both narrating both Kauai Storm and Hawaii Rage were highlights of both my writing and my acting career.
oh wow. So how long does it take? Because your books they're chunky. So how long did it take you to narrate? Was it really a full week, 5 days a week, 8 hours a day?
Well, they reserved five days for both of the books. I took 4.5 for
Oh
both
wow.
of the books. And yeah, they are kind of chunky. Hawaii Rage, for people who understand word count, is about 100,000 words.
Yeah.
For people who don't, say 400 pages.
Yeah.
But I'm not only like really going into this whole page turning mystery and sleuthing and clues and all of that.
Mhm.
it's also a family drama.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of relationships, there's a lot
Mhm.
of emotion. As you mentioned before, there's a lot of culture. And Makalani also works at Pu'ukohola Heiau National Historic Site. And part of what she has to do there is go through an immersion learning program. And a lot of that has to do with the history of King Kamehameha I, who is from that region, that area. And also that's where my ancestors hail from, the North Kohala area.
And when she took the job at the historic site or the smaller park,
Exactly.
she was not very happy in the book. And
Well,
she had and the fact that she had to take classes about her own heritage. I thought that was pretty interesting. That's there's
yeah.
some of the requirements that they require.
Well, I was very interested in this as well. I made great friends with a ranger at Pu'ukohola and he was so incredibly helpful and so knowledgeable, passed on so much wisdom. And I was amazed by the 6-week cultural immersion program. Now, generally, when they inherit a national park ranger, it is from the mainland. And so they really have a lot to learn.
Yeah.
And so there could have been weeks less than
Yeah.
that for Makalani, and she would have only have needed to learn about the history of the heiau so that she could, really relay that information to visitors and all of that kind of stuff. However, she was born and raised on Kauai, and as her supervisor pointed out, the people from Kauai don't always have the same proper respect for King Kamehameha I because he's known to have unified all the Hawaiian islands, and to do that, he had to also conquer the other, kingships in Hawaii to bring them all under the kingdom of Hawaii. But Kauai, King Kuamo'ali'i, he was the only one who did not surrender, for example, or was not conquered. Instead, he struck a deal. And he said, I will, when I die, pass over the kingdom, what I am controlling of Kauai and Ni'ihau, over to you. And so for the rest of his life, King Kamehameha I allowed him to be like a sub-king, right, under him. And so the Kauaians, the people from Kauai are very proud of this fact. And the supervisor at Pu'ukohola, feels that that translates into a lack of respect and that Makalani needs extra education to unlearn everything she learned while on Kauai, specifically from her tutu, her grandmother.
Okay.
And so that's where a lot of this conflict comes. So yeah, she's antsy. She grew up on a homestead. This
Mhm.
is a gal who hikes and hunts and fishes and farms and rescued people off mountains. And she's stuck in this little, office, reading textbooks. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard for her.
Yeah. So we've talked a lot about Makalani. So where did the thought or the idea or the inspiration for Makalani come from?
Mm. Well, when I set out to write this series, I knew I wanted to write about what Kanaka Maoli, Native Hawaiians, were going through in Hawaii today, right? And one of the first things I learned was the issue of land, of the Aina and of Hawaiian homelands. And that became the whole theme of Kauai Storm. And what better way to do that than from a character who grew up on a Hawaiian homeland's homestead?
Mhm.
And so that's when I knew that I wanted her to have that upbringing from a very small but very strong Hawaiian cultural town, Anahola. And I wanted Makalani to be one of these majestic Hawaiians, right? So she and her grandmother, by the way, are 6 feet tall. This is not, your typical lithe hula dancer, like me, right? I'm 5'4", I'm petite. She's not like me. She could carry me and my husband down a mountain. She's strong, powerful, and that was important to me. I wanted her to be that. And I wanted her to have this kind of, overly helpful energy. She gets into a lot of trouble trying to help everybody, trying to be responsible for everybody. It is the flip side of the coin. It's her greatest asset and her greatest hindrance, right? It's what she needs to overcome. But it's also what took her away from the islands for over a decade. And now we have this sense of fish out of water, coming home, not fitting in, that everybody can relate to, right? You don't have to be Hawaiian to understand this. All you have to do is basically be an adult, right? Or even not be an adult. Everybody knows what it's like to not fit in, but especially to not fit in after you've left home and you're trying to come back and everything is not quite the same. So my this is what I wanted to do for Makalani. I wanted her to be powerful, impressive, yet also a little insecure with people, uncomfortable, things like that. I wanted her to be relatable for everybody, whether you're Hawaiian or not.
And the Hawaii Rage gives some Yellowstone vibes.
Ah, strong
It
Yellowstone
strong
vibes.
Yellowstone vibes. I mean, there's all kind of stuff going on these ranches. Um, Outsiders, plus the family. I mean,
Oh
was
yeah.
that it adds to the depth of the story, I guess you could say. Speaking of, have there been any options talked about for your books as far as possibly series, movies that you could talk about?
Well, Lone Tree Entertainment has been shopping this around. So far, we have not had any bites that I've heard of, but it Hawaii Rage would definitely make a great mini series. And
Yes.
like you said, it is so Yellowstone vibes.
Yeah.
Except, it's Hawaii,
Yeah.
right? So it's not that big,
Mhm.
huge, rich, vast land and and that kind of a thing. It's
Mhm.
Hawaii. This ranch goes from the mountains on a sliver of land all the way down to the ocean. It follows an ahupua'a, which is the way in which land was divided in Hawaii. And it's modeled after the ranches that actually exist up there. And so it's more humble, right? Because it's Hawaiian. And yet it is intrinsically family because it was started by the first Tiapo. And now we have this patriarch, and his son has died, and his son had two sons and a daughter, and they have, and so we have all these entities, and they have different ideas about what should be done with this ranch, and they're all like a little bit suspicious in this. And then we have this other rancher who's on the ranch, and it's like, we don't know about him. And it's not just Makalani who's worried. There's a Detective Rona Kim, who has come in from Honolulu into the boys' club of, detectives in Waimea. And so again, you get that fish out of water, strong
Mhm.
woman trying to make her way, amongst these men who are all very familiar with everything, and she doesn't know anything about ranching. And they stuck her, with this case involving what? A bull? So we've got, both of these entities trying to figure out what's going on.
What are you working on now? What's next?
Oh, interestingly enough, completely different. A standalone domestic suspense, psychological suspense.
Ooh.
Yeah, and it's set in an area of Portland, Oregon,
Oh,
where I live.
okay.
And also has a dual timeline that starts back in New York, 1981, and has to do with the Broadway musical, area, which is something else ripped from my past. I do tend to write close to home. I pull from my heritage, I pull from my experiences. Yeah.
I was doing a little research too. You were on the Love Boat. Tell us a little bit about the Love Boat.
I was. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I was a Love Boat mermaid. They called me Maria. I asked for them to call me Leilani, but they weren't having it. So they called me Maria. And they hired us. We were eight, women, who danced and sang. We were the resident act on the Love Boat, the
Mhm.
cruise liner, right? And so we were series regular for the whole final year of that hit show, The Love Boat. And so it was like 18 episodes. And I got to perform with some amazing, iconic because we always had guest stars that would
Mhm.
come and take
Yeah.
the cruise liner. So, Betty White, Carol Channing, The
Oh, wow.
Temptations, Andy Warhol. It was just like, it was crazy. I did a scene with Felicia Rashad, and it was very cool.
That's
Very cool.
awesome. So a show like The Love Boat, of course, I grew up watching it. I remember it. I don't remember you specifically on there, but I do remember The Love Boat. So did you travel with it or was it filmed on set?
It's filmed on a set.
Is it really?
Yeah, at least for us, we were
Yeah.
always on the set. There used to be specials on certain years where the cast would actually, like go somewhere, but that was sort of a special thing.
Uh,
Generally speaking, it was all on the Formosa set in Los Angeles. Yeah.
Talk about your first set of books.
Oh, the
The
Lily Wong
the
Ninja
Lily
Thrillers.
Wong. Yeah. Tell us about Lily.
Absolutely. Okay, so Lily is a Chinese Norwegian modern day ninja from Los Angeles with what I call Joy Luck Club family issues. Her mother is an immigrant from Hong Kong, a financier for her father's international finance company. And her father is a Norwegian from North Dakota, farmer turned authentic Hong Kong cuisine chef. He has a restaurant above which Lily Wong lives. And Lily had been training in martial arts since she was 3 in wushu, and then on the sly with a ninja teacher since she was 12. And so when her sister is raped and murdered, when at the same time Lily has just gone to college, she feels a tremendous guilt about this because she could have stayed at home, but she didn't. And she changes her whole life. She drops out of UCLA, devotes all of her ninja training for real, and helps working for a women's shelter to protect women and children from violent situations. So the first two books, The Ninja Daughter and The Ninja's Blade, take place in Los Angeles. The Ninja Betrayed, Lily joins her mother in Hong Kong. And for the big finish, The Ninja's Oath, Lily goes to Shanghai to help her father's chief cook find his great grandniece, and it turns into this huge, big, dramatic, like Quentin Tarantino-esque action, ending up in Japan.
Oh,
So,
wow.
yeah, a
That's awesome.
lot of authentic action. And here, once again, I'm drawing from the Norwegian side from my father, the Chinese portion of my Hawaiian Chinese mother, the Japanese heritage because my parents met and married in Tokyo where my sisters were born, and my experience as a fifth degree black belt in To-Shin Do ninja martial arts.
Mm.
And all of that comes to play in the Lily Wong Ninja series.
Oh, wow, that's awesome. Your books, they're well researched. I've not read the Lily Wong, but I have read Makalani's books, and there's so much research that is very obvious in these books. Is there anything you've ever come across that just totally just blew your mind like a big surprise?
I got to say the blood quantum. The blood quantum hit me hard, man. And I found that out from a friend. I called her up, talked story for hours, and boy, she was passionate about this issue. And I was like, wow, I was not aware of this. And that was huge. If my ancestors had actually applied for land as as the commoners were allowed to do, but many of them didn't understand how to do or why it would be necessary. But if my ancestors had done that, I and my relatives, hundreds of them, we could be controlling an incredible amount of land right now, which we do not. And so that was really shocking. But interesting what you say about research, because no matter how much things are ripped from my life, everything that I write, every book has always begun with research about a topic, about a place, and from there emerges characters and emerges story for me.
Yeah. Is there a storyline, an arc, or a character that you had to delete to make the story work? Have you ever had to delete a character, just completely wipe them out?
Huh. Well, in the book that I'm working on now, I just turned in the manuscript, and when I was kind of hammering out where this book would go, I had like a subplot and a character and this whole thing that was going on that my editor and I decided, no, you know what, we really don't need that. The character stayed, but she didn't do this whole like nefarious thing that I thought
Ah,
she needed to do. And so the storyline of her changed and was, you know, deleted. But I didn't have that happen with any of the Lily Wong books, and I didn't have it with any of the Ranger Makalani Pahukula books either.
what advice could you give to aspiring writers?
Oh, goodness, what advice? Well, write.
Mhm.
Write often, write every day if you can, even if it's just a little bit. And, by every day, I mean, obviously there are going to be days where that just doesn't work. But if you set out to do that, even for 15 minutes, what happens is that you train yourself to to build that discipline, that writing discipline. And discipline, whether in my past careers as an actor, a singer, a dancer, a martial arts person, and now, an author and apparently a narrator, um, my superpower has always been discipline.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I would recommend that. It's
Okay.
helpful.
What does success mean to you as a writer?
Oh, goodness. That's one of those lines that just keeps moving. I'm not the only one. I think that happens with a lot of us, when you're struggling to be published, that success looks like getting published, right? And
Mhm.
then when you're published, that success looks like, and so it keeps moving, it keeps moving. I guess I want to keep I suppose leveling up, I'd like to continue to work with big publishers if I can. I'm working with Thomas and Mercer, which
Uh-huh.
is the big suspense mystery thriller imprint of Amazon Publishing right now. And so, I'd like to kind of stay on this level, this big five level, this,
Mhm.
that kind of thing. That would be great. I would like that.
Mhm.
I would love at some point to have, the elusive breakout book that kind of, takes that further.
Mhm.
But these days, I enjoy being able to have that creativity. I enjoy that it fits with the life I'm living now,
Mhm.
caring for my grandchildren, because that's really important to me.
Yeah. Is there an author that you would consider co-writing with, like coming together?
Oh goodness. Sure.
Mhm.
How about JT Ellison?
Yeah.
She's a great friend. I'm a huge fan. I'm a
Mhm.
huge fan of her. I marvel at her career as much as I marvel at her as a person and, the books that she writes. So I suppose, that's the first name that comes to mind.
Yeah.
There are a lot that I would love to learn from, but, I'll throw her out.
Uh, who would you consider to be your influences in the writing world that influenced how you are today?
Oh, early on with Lily Wong, I always said F. Paul Wilson.
Hmm.
He hasn't written in a while, but he has a tremendous body of work. And what I always liked about F. Paul Wilson was every word in his book earned its spot on the page. There were no superfluous words. He didn't go on and on and on and, drag things out. And I love that. I love being able to be evocative yet concise, to have that pace, to dive deep and yet continue to move that pace without getting bogged down, right?
Yeah.
And so I admired that in writers, and I always admired that in him. So just wanted to mention him.
All right.
He's a dear friend.
Where can our listeners find you on social media? Where are your social media handles?
Oh, well, I love Instagram. I'm a visual person. I love pictures and videos. So writer.tori, not rider like horseback rider, like in Hawaii Rage and all the Hawaiian Paniolo. Writer like author, writer.tori. And also that goes to Threads. But you can also find me on Tori Eldridge author, all that. The easiest thing though, just go to my website, torieldridge.com.
All right. And what about signed books? Is there any place where readers can get signed copies of your books?
Absolutely. The Poison Pen. The Poison Pen always stocks my books, and they have a lot of signed copies, on hand. If you're in Portland, Bold Coffee and Books has some signed copies. Book Soup might have some signed copies. I'm not sure. Annie Bloom's books in Portland, I can always go in and sign because they're my neighborhood book.
Okay.
In fact, they have a whole signing page for me.
And this is we're kind of getting the tail end of your release, the early stages.
Hmm.
Are you having appearances coming up?
Oh goodness, I am getting ready to relax.
I got you. I
I had
understand.
oh my gosh, I had a month and a half of nonstop. One of the highlights was being on KGW television over here. I was on a show called Hello Rose City. Oh, that was a blast. Really enjoyed that and felt like a real Oregonian when I had a whole featured interview on the Oregonian. I'm like, oh wow, okay. I guess I'm a real Oregonian now. That was cool,
That's awesome.
and some really cool things with Hawaii as well. So I'm the summer book for the Kala Hawaiian Civic Clubs, their book club. I'm their summer book, Hawaii
Okay.
Rage. So that's
Awesome.
cool too.
We'll wrap up with one final question. What would you like your readers to take away from the Makalani series?
Oh, I would like my readers to get a real feel for what Hawaii is like from a Native Hawaiian perspective. And I want their hearts to open and I want them to feel, not just for Hawaiians, but I want them to really be moved emotionally by the book and the characters and the themes of forgiveness and coming home and yeah, like that.
Awesome. Well, I would like to recommend for everybody to pick up Kauai Storm and Hawaii Rage. They're available now wherever books are sold, Amazon Publishing. You will not be disappointed in these books. They are suspense, mystery, family, history. You learn so much about the Hawaiian culture and the Kauai culture. These are some of the best books I've read in a
Oh,
long time. So I highly recommend everybody check those out. Thank you, Miss Tori, for joining us, and we will talk to everybody later.
oh, thanks for having me. Mahalo
Yes,
nui
sir.
loa.
Thank you.